Sachas Gittin Daf begins in the middle of a sugya about Pagina Dibura. Tomorrow we'll discuss what the halacha is, then have one more brief comment on the end of our last Mishnah, and then we get to the second Mishnah in the Masechta of the first new Mishnah, which brings us more halachas about Mefani Nechtav and Mefani Nechtam. This Mishnah has been quoted earlier, and we will see some of the Gemara's discussion earlier on this Mishnah repeated. So the Gemara is in the middle of a discussion about Pagina Dibur. Pagina Dibur means if a person says one thing and part of it works and part of it doesn't work, but it's the same sentence, can you split it? Can you say it works concerning one subject, but it doesn't work concerning another subject? Rabbi Meir said no. Rabbi Shimon said yes. So if somebody says a phrase, he says to his Eved, all my property belongs to you except for part of it. So the part of it doesn't work because you don't know which part he means to leave out, so he can't claim anything. The question is, will it work on the Eved himself? Can he get himself? Because he's not considered to be, he can't be a part of it, at least not if he specified land, which is the situation that we're bringing a proof from. So Rav Shimon says, yes, it works, because even though it doesn't work for one thing, it works for the other thing. And Rav Meir says, since it doesn't work for one thing, it can't work the other thing. There's no Pagin on Dibura. Now, the Gemara discusses, now what is the halacha? Do we say Pagina Dibur or not? So the Gemara says Machlokes Reb Meir and Rav Shimon like we've seen. So Rabbi Yosi, who's another Tana, praised Rabbi Shimon, and he says Fasam Yishak Meisha Dvarim Lechochem. It's lip smacking good to say such a beautiful thing. But says Rav Nachman, even though Rabbi Yosi praised Rabbi Shimon, the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. So I asked, but did Rabbi Nachman say that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir? We have a different halacha said from Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Yosef by Menyumi close Rabbi Nachman, who seems to say that the halacha is Pagina Dibur, like Rabbi Shimon. And that's talking about the case of somebody who is dying and he writes over all his property to his Eved, and then he gets healed. He returns to strength. So the halacha is that somebody wrote over his property as a gift to someone while he was about to die, and then he gets up. He has the right to undo the gift. The gift was only predicated on the assumption that he was about to die. So he gets the gift back. So the halacha there is, though, that he doesn't get the Eved back. Since the Eved was already set free, you can't take him back. Once he's free, he's gone. So you see then that the gift that he gave works to set the Eved free, but it does not work on the property. So that is Pagina Dibura. That's like Rav Ashi. So Mer says, you're right. Really, the halacha is Pagina Dibur. You can't split things. Rabbi Meir over here, who said that it doesn't work, not on the Eved and not on the property. It doesn't work on the property because we don't know which piece of property he left out. It doesn't work on the Eved for a different reason. Not because he can't split, not because there's no Pagina Dibur. There is Pagina Dibur. It should be able to work on the Eved. It doesn't work on the Eved because this is an improper get shachar. It's an improper bill of separation. A bill of separation has to be a clean cut, where there's no doubt left on it. Here, we said it left something out. You don't know what he left out exactly. That's no good. And therefore, it's a psul in the get shachar, and that's what Rav Nachman was paskening here, like Rabbi Meir. The Gemara refers back to our last Mishnah where we said that if you have the get was brought, and people come and there are challengers to the validity of the signatures. So the Mishnah said you should bring two witnesses to corroborate the signatures that they're not forged. So Mishnah says, what kind of challengers are we talking about over here? If it's one person who's challenging, Rav Yochanan said one person is not a challenge. You don't have to respond to that. If it's two people, so what does it help to have two others corroborate the signatures? It'll be 2 against 2, and we'll be stuck with nothing. So my answer is the husband himself. The husband himself comes in and challenges. You have to take it seriously, but if you have to aid him to contradict him, it won't be 2 against 2 anymore. Right, now we get to our next Mishnah, which discusses, we've seen it quoted earlier. It says as follows: somebody who comes from Medina Hayam, and he cannot say b'fanei nechtam. The Gemara will explain that he brought the get. He was not a cheresh. He was not a deaf mute, because a deaf mute can't bring a get. And then, before I could say b'fanei nechtam, he lost the ability to speak. So now, what do you do? So the Mishnah says the halacha is that you certify the signatures, and that's enough. You can rely on that. You don't have to worry about saying b'fanei nechtam. We discussed a few daf ago, is this a proof to Rabba or Rava as to what the reason for saying Fanei Nechtam is. Now, the Mishnah continues, and it says that this halacha applies to the 2 types of Gittin that there are: a get nashim and a get shachar avadim, a bill of divorce for a woman and a bill of separation to set an Eved free. And they are both the same for Moilech and maybe. It is for bringing a get in either direction, bringing it to or from Eretz Yisrael. And this, the Mishnah concludes, this is one of the ways in which a get of a woman and a get of an Eved are the same. The Gemara now begins. The Gemara explains, like we said earlier, the reason that the Shliach could not say Fananachtam. Nachman brings the Mishnah that a Cheresh Shaita and Katan cannot be what's happening because they can't be a Shliach, and explains that he was a Pekech, but he became a Cheresh. Now the Gemara goes to the line where it said that the same applies for Gittin Nashim and Shechuri Avadim, the get Shechur as well as the get Isha. That mentions the three ways that a get of women and Avadim are the same. And it says they are as follows. First of all, as far as Lachav Fanenachtam Fanenachtam, the second way is that in Eid Kusi, a non-Jewish witness, is possible on all shtares except for a get of a woman and Eved. And the third halacha is that any shtar, a document which is made in a non-Jewish court, is valid because non-Jewish courts can also deal with finance and all kinds of other documented law, but they are not in the business of Shechuri Nashim and Avadim, get Nashim and Shechuri Avadim, therefore those documents that they make are invalid. Now, Rabbi Meir holds there's a fourth way, and that's if somebody says to a shliach, makes a shliach to bring a get or a get shechur, a get isha or a get shechur, as soon as the shliach receives it, according to the Rabbanon, they are already valid. They already take effect, and the person cannot backtrack on it. According to Rabbi Meir, that applies to other shtaros, but it does not apply to the get shechur and the get isha. And the reason is because the machlokas between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Meir is it considered to be a benefit for the woman and the Eved to receive the get? Rabbi Meir says it is not a benefit. They don't want it. And we cannot therefore do what's called zachin, which is to accept it. The shliach cannot accept it on their behalf, and it's if they received it, unless they specifically have appointed him, and they have not appointed him. The Rabbanan say no, it's a benefit for him, and the rule is always zachin adam shel b'fanav. You can't do something for someone without his having appointed you, as long as it's a benefit. So now the Gemara asks, why does Mishnah mention a number? It says, according to the Chachamim, 3 things. According to Rabbi Meir, 4 things. So whenever there's a number, it's to exclude something. So according to Chachamim, I understand 3 and not 4. We're excluding Rabbi Meir's. According to Rabbi Meir, what is the 5th thing that we are excluding? So the Gemara quotes a brisa that brings this 5th halacha where Rabbi Meir holds that it's not true. And that is halacha. What do you do if you have witnesses, but the witnesses don't know how to sign their name? So we hold that the halacha is the same for Gittin Nashim, Shechuri Avadim, and every other shtar, and therefore they're not on the list. And the halacha is that you can make a stencil for them. You carve out, you scratch out their names from one piece of paper, and they fill in ink over the holes, and it writes on the other piece of paper, and that's how you record their signatures. Now, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is the dissenting opinion. He holds this is only true by Gittin Nashim and Shechuri Avadim, and the reason this is a special takana that we should want to make it easier for them to be set free, lest the guy travel and leave them as an aguna, leave them hanging. Now, there is a lashon kasha here, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the way he phrases it is he says, if they know how to read and to sign, they sign. And if not, they don't sign. So what does reading have to do with this? There's something missing here. If they don't know how to read, we read it for them, and they sign. And if they don't know how to sign, then we make the stencil. So that's how you have to properly phrase the Mishnah. Now the Gemara asks that there are other ways that are special halachos that apply only to a shtar shechur and a get isha. The Gemara's first question is the halacha of giving someone after the death of giving something after the death of the giver. So here the halacha is that if a person says to a shliach, give this get to my wife, or this shtar shechur, or this get shechur to my eved, and then he dies before it's given, so you can't give it because it's no longer valid. He no longer owns the eved. He goes immediately to the inheritor, and he's no longer the woman's wife, the woman's husband. She's already set free from the moment that he dies. So this is a special halacha that applies just to those two. However, if a person is sick or dying and he says, give a gift to someone, and then he dies, we give the gift even after he dies, because he already said to give it. And the halacha is, you say, if someone is sick and dying and he says to give, it's like it's already transferred. Rishos, and already belongs to that person, and we give it. So why don't we list that? So Gemara says we don't list that because there is a situation in which you wouldn't be able to give it, and therefore it's not an exclusively unique halacha to Gittin Daf avadim. And that's if a person is sick and dying, but he says he writes on shtar, he says write a shtar, a document of transferring property to give it to this person that I would like to give the gift to. And there, he doesn't want it to go right away from the moment he says it. He's clearly indicating that it's supposed to go only on the document. So if the document wasn't made, he didn't want it to go yet, and therefore it didn't go yet. And now, once he dies, it's too late, because it didn't go yet, and it's no longer his, it immediately goes to the inheritors. Because it's not exclusive to get Isha and Shechar Avodim, we didn't mention it on this list. Next, the Gemara asks, what about the halacha of Lishma? I get Isha and a Shecher Evet has to be written Lishma. That's not true by any other shtar. If you find a shtar and the name happens to match, you could use that for loans or for bills of sale or whatever you want. So the Gemara says we didn't mention shtar, we didn't mention Lishma because, so Lefi Rabbah, Lishma is actually what the Mishnah was referring to when it says Allah Fani Nechta. So it's not a kasha going to him. But according to Rava, that is nothing to do with that. So then why do we mention Lishma? So the Gemara answers, before the Gemara answers, the Gemara says another kasha is there's Allah Mechuber. And get Isha and a Shecher Evet cannot be written while something is attached to the ground. It has to be written on something that's free. So the answer is both of these are psulei deraisa, and we're only listing psulei derabanan. So asks, but you mentioned in the Mishnah a document that's made in a non-Jewish court. That is a psul deraisa, and that's listed. My answer is no. We're talking in the opinion of Rabbi Elazar and a psul derabanan. Why? Rabbi Elazar holds the main part of the get is the edim mistira, the witnesses who see that it actually happens. You don't have to have signatures on the get at all. You have to have the get written, and witnesses who see that it's given. That's the essence of the divorce. The signatures there are just to testify that